Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we are going to be making a full front shaker card with a winter scene. And so I am using the spring cottages and the countryside. That might be a little bit surprising. I'm also using the snow globe shaker. Here I'm showing you this one with the hills. In case you don't have the cottage countryside, you could use that to create your own. And then I pulled out a bunch of different sentiment sets. I wasn't really sure what I was going to use. I just had the idea to kind of make the things that we like, the scenes that we already have, fit for the season that we have. And I can tell you in the last 48 hours, this is the season that we're in, at least here in Ohio. So here, this is just regular Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock. I'm cutting out my clouds and my countryside out of that. And then I'm also cutting out, I think these are the Lovely Layers trees. I can't remember exactly what their title is. I'll link everything below. But I wanted to have a little tree in my scene, so I pulled out some of those. And then I pulled up the guide for the spring cottages. I'm going to be honest with you, I was really on the hunt for the winter village. And then I realized that I don't actually own it. Can you believe that? Is that not crazy? So now I'm going to have to get that one because I really wanted like the church looking building for this, but that's okay. I settled for I didn't settle, they're beautiful, for the spring cottages, and it will show you another way in which you can have, you can use what you have and make it work just like I did here. So here I cut out the regular portion of the snow globe in white, and then I cut out the base in gold. Later on, I'm going to change that to silver. But basically, I'm just going to run them all through in white. You can use colored cardstock if that makes you happy, if you're not a person who enjoys coloring. I like the coloring, but either way, whether you do the coloring or you use colored cardstock, you can still create the same kind of winter scene to make your own little snow globe. So I just try to leave everything. You can see I just pulled my whole my whole cutting plate right over here from my platinum. And then I try to keep them in as long as possible. And then I use my die release tool from Honeybee to put them into a little cup. Here I am going to use some masking paper just so that it makes it easier to add my shading to my hills. You could also do this with a marker so that you didn't have to do the ink blending, but I chose to use the masking paper, and actually the sheet that I picked wasn't even quite long enough, but we're gonna make do. We're gonna do with what we have. The country cottage does not cut all the way through because then, those embossed parts are one piece for you to do your whole background. So I'm just going to follow along those lines and trim them out. For the first layer, I am going to add the bottom mask and the top mask, which will then leave the middle one open. And this is just if you're ink blending. If you're coloring it, you don't have to do any of this masking, but I find that ink blending gives me the softest blend, which is usually what I want when I am doing a scene that is snow, because I am trying to leave some white. Here, because my masking paper was just a bit short, I had to cut myself a little extra piece for the top one and then put that in place. But now that those are all masked, I can add the shading, and I just want to add it from the bottom toward the top. I want to leave the top edge white, as white as I can. I use shaded lilac and speckled egg to do the shading for my snow, but any kind of grayish blue or purple blue, a blue violet will work for that. So then before I remove the masks for the top and the bottom, I'm going to put the middle one on, so that way I don't have to worry about getting it lined up exactly where the shading stops and starts, I'll already have done it because I put it on while the other masks were in place. And then that extra piece, I'm just going to move down. I'm going to take it, the whole mask off the top edge and then add a little bit more shading there. I am trying to be, a little bit more controlled with it because when you're doing anything white, you're just adding the shadows. And so you don't want to make everything blue violet or everything gray blue. So I am trying very hard to leave a little bit of a white edge. And then I will, once this one is done, I will remove the mask from the bottom portion and add shading there as well. So I didn't even realize we were supposed to get like a lot of snow. I'm in Ohio. I've lived in Ohio my whole life. So obviously I am never surprised when it starts snowing. And because of where I live in Northeast Ohio, we have lake effect snow. Now we are not in the snow belt, but my in-laws are. But I am sure they got more snow than us, but we did get quite a bit in the last 2 days. We probably got like a foot of snow, which means like if you have doggies, like we have doggies, like you do kind of have to go out there and make a little pathway, especially because I have an old doggie. Molly will be 14. Is that right? 14 in February. 14 on February 14th. She was a rescue, so they told me to just pick her birthday, and I picked Valentine's Day. Yeah, I think it is 14. So, she still gets around pretty good, especially since my vet had me put her on these, like vitamin supplements for joint health. She's actually still gets around pretty well. But it's very easy for her to get kind of tripped up if on the stairs. There's 2 little stairs on the deck that they have to go down. I just did the sky. I kept it really kind of light blue. It's a daytime scene. This would look great as a nighttime scene. You could also do this as a light up card with the little houses. That would be great. And then I added just a little bit of blue to my clouds so they weren't stark white. Now, we're going to get into the coloring of the things. So, if you're not familiar with the way that Honeybee does things, any of their dyes that have layers, they have a layering guide, and you can find that on their website. Just go into the search. In this case, put in Spring Cottages, and then on the right-hand side underneath where you would add it to your shopping cart, they have the layering guides. So I always just pull these up. I pull up the little PDF before I start coloring, so that I can get a look at what everything is and how I would like to color them. So as part of this set, they have this little like rock wall and archway, which I thought that's super cute. Like this is a super cute set, regardless of what season, but I thought, okay, well, that's really cute. And that would accumulate snow. And then, the house that I chose, has a little chimney, so I'm adding a little shading to the bottom and kind of the left-hand side where it's tucked up against the house. And then I chose some mid-tone browns, some warm browns, and some red browns to do the brick. And as you can see, I'm just holding my marker kind of on a horizontal and then just dotting it in there to get the bricks. And then I will move on to the, what is this? I don't know. It's like the trim, I don't know. I keep wanting to call them like accents, but it's like the shutters and the door and, the things like that go, the trim around the house. And then those I'm doing all brown, and I'm doing the house blue because blue is my boyfriend. I could have done a different color and probably made it pop a little bit more, but I like the way that the blue looks. That's just me. So anyway, we do have to go out there and kind of like shovel the deck a little bit. And my dear sweet child, so my son is well, I mean, he's still technically a school-age child, but he's almost a teenager. So he typically goes out and does the deck. He enjoys the scooping of the snow very much, which God love him. So he was out there and had did the deck and then did a portion of the yard in case it was too deep for them to go out into the yard and go potty. And then he also, once my husband got home, he does know how to work the snowblower, our son, but because it was the first time, like this season, that we've had to use it, this is not our first snow, but it's our first probably considerable snowfall. So I was like, I don't know if there's gas in it, if it needs gas, if it's been, like, I don't know what the deal is. So you gotta wait for Dad to get home. So he did, and then he did our driveway, and we have an elderly couple that lives, like, kind of across the street. So Peanut went over into their driveway as well. And so then it snowed all night. I didn't know we were supposed to get that much snow. It was like tricky. It got me by surprise. So then it snowed all night. So then this morning when I got up with Jelly Bean, we were both like, oh, hello. That is quite a bit of snow. But like she's 3 now, so she's been not too little to go out in the snow, but kind of too little to really be able to run around and enjoy it. So today we did get to take her out in the snow. My husband went out to snow blow the driveway, and you guys know, like, it takes longer to get yourself ready to go out in the snow and your child ready to go out in the snow, then you guys will actually be out in the snow, because you got to put, like, for me, so I put on like my fleece lined leggings and then a big pair of sweatpants and a long sleeve shirt and a sweatshirt, and then on her I put on some little what do they call that? It's not long underwear. They call it something else. But anyway, so she'd have a bottom layer, and then I put her a pair of sweatpants, then a t-shirt and a sweatshirt, and then her, her hat, her gloves, her coat, same thing with me. Since Eric was already doing the driveway, he was already dressed. I tried to get Peanut out there, but, like I said, he's almost a teenager, so he was not interested in hanging out. But 2 or 3 years ago, we had actually gotten him a snow tube, and it looks like a little wolf, so you can sit in it, and then you can go down hills or whatever. We don't have any hills in our yard to speak of, really. Let's go back to the card. So here with the trees, I'm just laying one on top of the other, and I'm going in with what I thought was going to be my darkest color, but actually is not. It ends up being my dark mid-tone, and I am filling in all of the dark spots onto the base layer, and then once I know where those are, I'm going to bring in this G29 and add them to, like, the darker spots. And then that way I can go through on the top layer and just start adding the shading in between. So, going in with that darker color and putting it on the bottom layer of each like level of tree, and then, blending that out with the next darkest color. I'm trying to leave some of my edges white so that I can get them with my lightest color, and then these will lay on top of each other. I will also go in and get the edges for the base layer of the tree so that they're not just bright white when we're layering everything together. I do try to be conscientious of those edges. And here, this is comical. I tell you guys, like, refill your markers, don't scrub them, you'll ruin your tips. And here I am just scrubbing away at that tree with my YG03, so I didn't have to refill it. Oh, typical parent behavior. Do as I say, not as I do. So anyway, then I think that's everything colored, and we're going to start to put them all together. So I like liquid glue. I do really enjoy my precision glue press. For this, it has a fine tip on it, but there is a little bit of a learning curve. You do have to make sure that it's seated a particular way or it will clog just like any other tip. So, anyway, my almost teenager did not want to come out and play in the snow, so we took her out with our little woof tube, and my husband was able to find some tie downs in the bed of his truck, so we tied that to her little sled and pushed her around, pulled her around. At one point, I told Caitlin, like, let's see if Daddy can pull Mommy around, which I'm sure he did not appreciate because I don't weigh 30 some pounds like our child does. I weigh a little bit more than that. So we got to play in the front yard and throw some snowballs, to which I gave this is my own fault. I gave her a lightly packed snowball and I was like, throw it at Daddy. And I should have been very specific about, like, you know, throw it at Daddy's feet or at his legs or whatever, because she threw it at him and hit him almost directly in the face. And I was like, oh, baby, not in the face. It's not fun to get hit in the face by a snowball. So that was my own fault. I had to teach her that we don't hit in the face. So, we were out there for maybe a half an hour, I think, before it was getting kind of too cold. Here, I put my trim on and I pretty quickly realized that it was blending right into the rest of my roof. So I did go back in with some darker browns and add some more shading, so that way the trim on the front would stick out more, being a little bit of a lighter color. For the windows, you could let them see through to the other side, but I decided to keep those pieces and color them a lighter blue that matched the ink blending that we did in the sky. And then I'm just going to hold these in place with tape. And then once I get everything glued down, I won't have to worry about them coming out, but I needed them to be held there so I could put on the shutter over top of them. And for some reason, the first time I tried to get this one to stick down, it was not interested. So we had to go back in and try again. Alternatively, you could leave this piece off and just do the shutters and have it be like an open window. So there are some ways to, besides the color, that you can kind of customize them. So then once we were done playing in the snow, which I have to be honest with y'all, like, I try to be better about it with my kids, and I don't fault my parents. It was a different time, but, like, I don't remember my parents ever being outside, like, playing in the snow with us. So I try to make a conscious effort in the hopes that my kids will remember that I did, or at least have photographic proof that, like, yes, I did in fact play outside in the snow with you. But after we were done there, you got to come in, you have to get off. That's the reason for the sweatshirts and the sweatpants and the layers, so that you can kind of take off that top layer and still be dry underneath. So I did that and dumped all of those just right into the washer to get them done. We have to go back to the card. So here is how I'm going to create the texture for the snow, and that is with some embossing powder. You could also use a snow marker that Honeybee carries in the shop, where you put it on and then you heat it. I am using the Distress embossing pen, and then I am going to sprinkle on some puff embossing powder. Some puff embossing powders are just white, that's what mine is, and some have like a puff with a sparkle in it, which is also fun. But then once you have this on, and you'll just heat it, and as you heat it, it will kind of puff up like snow. So for my scene, I am just putting it right at the tippy tops of the snow hills, because remember, we're going to glue a bunch of stuff to this. And then I am going to proceed to add snow to all of my little pieces here. Again, you don't have to make it a snow scene. It could be like a couple of days since the last snow, but I really feel like it adds something to the whole scene to have the little snows. For these smaller pieces, I don't pour it. I just dip it right in there because it will fit right into the container. And so I just kind of do it one at a time. For the house, I try to do it all at one time. And then don't worry, like if you're not happy with the way that it looks after it is done, like for me, I realized I should have got some of those crossbars that come, that are part of the trim, like they would have stuck out. So I'm going to do it the first time and I'm going to set it with the heat tool, and then I can always go back and add more, which in this case I do. So you can get in there and be a little more subtle with it until you're sure where you want it to go, and then you can still go back in. I went back in and added a little bit more snow on top, and then I got those crossbar areas, and then that way I'll just go back in with the embossing marker, sprinkle some more on to add more snow to my house, and then heat set that. And then I'll go through and do the same to the trees before I start bringing everything together. So pull everything off, throw it in the washer, and then we made hot chocolate, which is basically how I lured her in the house once I realized that my husband's actually the one who pointed it out. He's like, her cheeks are getting awfully rosy. So then we checked her fingers and they were feeling a little bit chilly. So we made the decision to go ahead and bring her in, even though she was having snow. Much fun, pun intended. And so we did that by telling her, like, oh, we could go in and have some hot chocolate with marshmallows. My girl loves her some marshmallows. So we did do that. You'll have to tell me, are you hot chocolate with water or hot chocolate with milk? I am team hot chocolate with milk as long as we're going to drink it immediately. Like, I can't just be letting that sit out. That's too much for this girl. So now I am going to start building everything. Here I'm going to put my little countryside, which is now snowy, my snowy countryside. And yes, it's definitely larger than my snow globe. I am going to go in with these shears and just trim them off. You could also just put your die cut back in place, tape it, and then run it through, and it would cut off those edges perfectly. So once I have that trimmed down, here is where I'm like looking at the gold, and I'm like, ooh, I'm not sure about that. I'm not going to put it on. We'll come back to it. So I did the tree. Now you have to remember your scale. So the further back something is, typically the larger it's going to appear in the scene. So by putting the tree in the back, I am making it a very large fir tree, which I have very large fir trees that I'm looking right at out my window. So to me, it doesn't seem that different. And then you can decide how you want your rock wall, if you want the arch next to the house and then your rock wall. For me, I decided to put the rock wall next to the house, kind of like you would be like traveling through almost on some streets or a little pathway. So I could put the arch at the edge. Now it does kind of hang over into my other hill, which I don't like because that doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to take my little detail scissors and I'm going to trim it at an angle so that it looks like it tucks down behind that hill. And then that's going to make much more sense as our scene. Now, I put snow on kind of everything. You could also put them together like this and then take your marker into the bottom of the house and the bottom of the rock wall and put snow kind of built up there as well. I did not do that, but that is absolutely an option. Here, I realized I forgot to put in my clouds, so I just kind of popped my house up, and then I went back in, glued my house behind it, and then the same thing for the tree. I'm going to just slide my little cloud behind it, and then anywhere that it's kind of sticking out, I will just trim off with my scissors. So yeah, we came in, we made our little hot chocolates. I gave her a spoon. She immediately ate all of her marshmallows off the top of her hot chocolate, and then she tried to start eating all the marshmallows off of mommy's hot chocolate as well. Here's where I put the gold down, did not love it, switched it over to a mirrored silver, and then this is when I thought that I wasn't going to make a shaker card. I was just going to do just the snow globe card, and so I popped this up on foam. I have regrets about this. If you want to do the full A2 size shaker, don't pop that piece up on foam. So here I could not decide on a sentiment that I really, really liked. So I ended up going with Be the Light, and this is from the Be the Light sentiment set, and it has a lot of really, really great kind of encouraging sentiments, which I liked. And so here is my original intention, was to just be to put it on some navy cardstock and then have that be the card. And I very quickly was like, I wish this was a shaker. And I'll link it at the end. I did show how to use this same die and turn it into an ornament. But before I turned it into an ornament, I turned it into a shaker. So you could follow those same steps to turn it into a shaker card. But mine was like kind of already done. So what I ended up doing was pulling out Honeybee's A2 sized full front shakers. So you peel the adhesive off of the sides, and then you lay your card down, front side down, and then that way you can fold up the sides. They already have really strong adhesive on them. And now, because I have that foam piece in there, I know that I'm really going to be struggling to get everything to fit in there, but it's okay. So I'm just going to burnish those sides down with my bone folder to make sure that they are sticking. And then you leave the top one on until you're done kind of stuffing it. Now, you could remove the film before that's going to protect your piece, but because I was already like putting it face down and having to really push on it, I removed my film after the fact. So I put in some white sequins, what is that? Sequins, and some rhinestones, and I originally did some bubble baths, like the little dewdrops and stuff. And so then once you have that in there, then you would go ahead and remove the top portion and press it down so everything would be contained in your A2 full front card shaker, which allows our little snow globe to be a shaker without being a shaped card. So what happened was I didn't like it, because it was over full and you couldn't really see the scene. So I went in, and even though I had already put it down, I kind of like peeled it back up. And then I am going to take all of the glittery bits and I'm going to dump them into a little bowl. So I'm going to dump them in there so that way I can kind of weed through them and get out the really big pieces that I felt like were taking away from the scene. So I'm just using my crystal katana for that. So I'm pulling out the larger bubble bath dewdrops, the larger sequins. I'm sorry for my camera being out of focus. I think it doesn't know what to do with all that glitter. So once I had pulled out the bigger pieces, I kept the smaller ones of the same. And then I also, which I felt like was a mistake earlier, I should have glued down some of the rhinestones as accents around the sentiment. I think it would have helped give it more balance. So I am attempting to do that now with the clear case on. Once again, don't do as I do. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be, like I am. Do as I say. So if you would like to add rhinestones to accent your sentiment, please do it before you put your shaker pouch on. So then once I had those where I wanted them, I went ahead and added in the smaller shaker bits, so we have much less and just the small parts. And I think this worked much, much better for the feel that I was going for. And then because I had to pry this up, I am going to go in with some very strong two-sided adhesive and put that on the top portion. This one was a little bit wide. I'm just going to go in with those detail scissors and trim that part off. So then that way I can remove the release paper just like we did before. The part where the paper is ripped, nobody's going to see that because once we put it on our card base, all of these little plastic portions are covered anyway. So then I like to shake it out to get it to be a bit more even. And then I can fold that top portion over just like I did before, burnish it with my bone folder to make sure everything is adhered down really well. And then our shaker is put back together, and I am much happier with the amount of shaker bits that are in it. Here, I just wanted to show you if you have some that kind of get stuck on each other and make themselves like thicker than they need to be, I use my die release tool to just slide in the corner so that way that I can poke them apart. You know, sometimes you can kind of like smack it on the table or flick it and that will work. But I typically have really good luck with my die release tool, and then that way I can just bump them. And then that's it. This is the whole little scene. So I hope that this helps you to use some of the things that you have, create little winter scenes. I think they're, little shakers are just magical. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.